Hello, everybody. It's your buddy John here, and I am doing this podcast because, face it, there was a lot of hubbub about what happened on Thursday when the House passed the so-called American Health Care Act, which, quite frankly, doesn't look too good if you are someone who actually liked Obamacare. Let's start off by saying Obamacare was perfect. Far from it. It was a step point toward greater healthcare reform. I never agreed with individual mandates. Didn't think it was right that you were first to have healthcare insurance. To me, that goes against a lot of things. But I understand that, yeah, you do need it. But there are a lot of folks who are way off who don't really need it. There are those who don't want to have it because they'll use it. Why force to have health insurance? And I was surprised a few years ago the Supreme Court actually upheld the individual mandate for Obamacare. Well, now apparently that's about to come in because the American Health Care Act is supposedly going to go to the Senate now, but the Senate has their own health care bill. And what happens is they have a joint committee on these things. Once the Senate passes their version of it, they'll have a conference committee come together, knock a few heads, and then Obamacare, as we know, pretty much be kaput. Now, this is all well and good, but there's a very interesting statement that Donald Trump made just shortly after the bill passed. But he was actually talking to the Australian Prime Minister Turnbull. He praised Australia's healthcare system, said it's better than America's. All right, if that's the case, why not bring it here? The Australian healthcare system is basically a public and private healthcare system, which basically means you get a basic public healthcare system, but you also have private options as well. There are some private options available. It's basically a two-tier system in a sense. I don't know all the whole details of it, although I know it works very well for the Australian system. You don't have the wait times that you may have in Canada and England with national healthcare systems, and the healthcare is outstanding. But he later said yesterday that, I meant all the nations have better healthcare systems than America. Okay? If that's the case, then maybe you will be surprised that we're the nation among the industrialized nations of the world that do not have national health care in some form. Medicare and Medicaid do not count for this. This is national health care for pretty much every citizen in some way, shape, or form. We don't have it in this country. We've known this for a long time. And Obamacare is not nationalized health care. It's simply a marketplace to help subsidies to make it more affordable to get health insurance. Now, it is true that some premium went up quite a bit for Obamacare. Some people saved quite a bit. Some people saw their premiums go up. The problem is, who controls the premiums? Obamacare? Not necessarily. It's the marketplace. And a lot of healthcare companies are abandoning the place because they can't make the profits that they want to make. It's not that they're not making money off this. They're simply making it as they would like because they want to appease their investors. And there lies the crux of the problem. When did healthcare become part of Wall Street. I mean, to me, it's almost sacrilegious that your health is supposed to be best for the interest of investor on Wall Street. To me, it's like, what if you have cancer and you need to treat it, save your life, and the person making the decision at the HMO or healthcare insurance company that you have to balance out with the business interest of the company as set by the CEO, who has to report to a directors and a board of shareholders, whatever, and they want to make as much money as they can with spending as little as they can. Well, guess what? The system tilted back in the favor of the insurance industry like they wanted it to begin with. The whole thing with Obamacare was pretty much crippled because the insurance industry wanted to have it to where you had the individual mandates, which basically meant it was going to be unpopular to begin with. Right off the bat, it was a lot of people, not necessarily all conservatives. The insurance played about pretty well, because basically, if Obama really wanted to stick it to the insurance industry and give us true health reform, we would have single-payer health care. Now, he's smart enough to know that would probably not have passed muster, which led me to an interesting discussion a few years back, right after Obama got reelected, I should say, where the discussion was, what if Obama waited to his second term to pass health care reform, managed to be popular to keep the Democrat majority in the Senate, in the House and the Senate? First of all, that would have been highly unlikely, because the fact is that the GOP, Tea Party, were mobilized not just for Obamacare, but for Obama himself. Anything, and this is what really bugs me about Trump. Okay, not everything Obama did was bad, as in not everything that Obama did was good. Not everything George W. Bush did was bad. Not everything George W. Bush did was good. Take, for example, Michelle Obama's now no longer the guidelines for school lunches, which have been repealed because Donald doesn't like. I tend to agree with that. I think that it's a bad approach to a problem which needed addressed, which was childhood obesity, but the way it was not necessarily, was basically she wanted to control the calorie intake, which overlooked the fact a lot of students needed those calories. What she should have been looking for was the quality of food, which should have been more fresher ingredients, giving school systems the ability to fresh vegetable meats and whatnot, to provide a healthier environment for students. Soul food suffered because of it, because they were trying to meet her guidelines, as well as budgetary restrictions. And the fact of the matter is, it became hugely unpopular, which it was a noble effort, but there's not a whole lot of thought brought into the fact that a lot of students, this is their only meal of the day. That and the breakfast, free breakfast, and free lunch on the programs they've got there. Shocking that there's that many students. I don't know the whole numbers, but I've heard quite a lot about that. It's a significant problem that there are students out there who this is their meal, and it's shocking, really, that when they go home, they don't have dinner, as parents can't afford it, which is shocking in itself. And unless Donald Trump has a magical way to raise wages and improve the quality of life for everybody, which he doesn't. I hate to say it, but there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be hurting because of this. Now, let me talk about the Australian healthcare system. Why it's important that we realize that this actually would be greatly beneficial. I think, if I'm mistaken, everybody, save for the very extreme poor, would pay 1% of what they make to healthcare. Those making above a certain percent of well off pay basically 2%. Which, yes, it's significant, but the fact is that you're already paying a bunch for health insurance to begin with, and Australians pay less and get more. Whereas here you pay more and less. And what's really disgusting is that there are people who believe that pre-existing conditions, and this is where I think care is going to be hindered. And I would have this right now. We don't know the impact of a healthcare plan because it's not become law yet, and the Senate may not go along with this. But what interests me is what happens when this law becomes fully into law and it's implemented and whatnot, and how unpopular it is that all of a sudden now the stuff you get covered with for Obamacare, you can't anymore. How many people is that going to affect? How many premiums go up because, oh, by the way, you once had cancer, but because of Obamacare, you could get insurance. Now Trump care means you can't get insurance, or you get insurance, you're going to be paying astronomically higher. So, yeah, the healthcare industry is very happy right now because to them, they don't have any reins anymore. Obamacare is going to be repealed. Shouldn't be. It's not a perfect system. Obamacare is not. But it was better than what we had before Obamacare, which for some reason people seem to not think that we should think much about that. It's sad to say because there was very good reason why we had Obamacare to begin with, because the healthcare industry was basically giving us less, charging us more, and basically saying, well, but you have this list of pre-existing conditions, we don't have to cover you. So, now, what'll happen? I wish I knew. I think Democrats are going to take and use it 2018. I think Trump is going to lose some momentum, and the Democrats could take the House. Could. Senate iffy, because more Democrats defending seats Republicans this time around. So, if they can serve, and keep what they have, and maybe a seat or two in the Senate, that'll win for them, which will help 2020's advantage. But the real impact of what Trump's doing won't be felt until the second 2 years of his term, when he's starting to build up toward a re-election. So, yeah, Trump is smiling now. He may not be smiling in a year's time. He actually has to run for re-election and try and convince people that he deserves a second term, which, in my honest opinion, I don't think he's going to get, because he's honked off enough Republicans to begin with, and I think there will be some Republicans who will see Trump as vulnerable and go, hey, I want this guy. Take him down. I want to be president myself. And I think that's going to happen. There is a very good chance Trump could be primaried out as President of the United States. It's not happened in my memory. It nearly happened to Jerry Ford. It nearly happened to Carter. But it hasn't really happened in our lifetime. The closest we've come was George Herbert Walker Bush having to run against Pat Buchanan in 1992, which was, it really wasn't that great of a contest because Bush had all the resources. Pat Buchanan had a bunch of conservatives who were not happy about the breaking of the Read My Lips taxes pledge in 19 because of the congressional budget deal, which later on actually Bill Clinton with the economy, the 1993 budget deal. But that's beside the point. Trump doesn't understand that you have to have a warm relationship with both sides of the Congress, the Senate and the House, both with Republicans and Democrats, to get stuff done. And it's interesting that 20 Republican House members voted against the bill. It passed by only 4 votes. 4 votes. All you have to do to defeat it, to have defeated it, was change votes. It went from 217 to 13 to 215, which would have passed 3 votes actually, because I think one person was what's the term? They weren't there. They didn't yay or nay. I'll say that much. I can't get the term right offhand. So it remains to be seen how this bill gets in the Senate, how it's affected. Or the Senate's claiming to do their own health care bill, which means that have a little conference, joint committee, whatever you want to call it, and they'll take a few months to get this out. With perfect timing, because this may come into effect in 2018, which would mean there would be an election year issue, which the Democrats will be rallied out, among other things. Now, 100 days, times the greatest days any president's ever had. Not really. What's he accomplished? Can you name something? Oh, he's repealing a lot of Obama stuff. He knew that going in. And he's really not done a lot of that. And Frank's starting to really make a lot of folks included. And here's some of the things he's done. Yeah, he deported a lot of people. A lot of those people would not have been deported at all, and some of them probably shouldn't have been. The problem with what he's doing, it's honking off his own supporters. Because a lot of his own supporters were like, he won't go that far. He's going that far. ICE is going after people who are here illegally, no matter what the circumstances are. And there was a recent, I can't remember the lady's name. She was a recent college, I think she's a college graduate, I think she's a grad student maybe. And there was a move to help to convince the congressman, a local representative here, who's a Republican, by the way, very conservative, to try and save this young lady. And ICE has decided they won't have the deportation hearing. Well, that's when it comes up. And they may decide to, or rather not tell anybody and kind of try to sneak her out of the country, which has happened. The fact is that this is a very scary situation. And it could very well impact a lot of us as we never imagined. Take, for example, the fishing industry, which relies a lot on migrant workers. Those migrant workers, in many cases, are here illegally. Which in a lot of ways is the reason why a lot of Republicans weren't necessarily entirely immigration reform. You got cheap labor for jobs that whites, blacks, and even native legal Hispanics didn't want. Do you go out in the field for barely anything and pick tomatoes and oranges and cucumbers and whatnot for hours on end? It's not fun work, folks. So, yeah, it is not fun. And a lot of folks who go, well, I can't, I'm working right now for a temp agent, and I couldn't physically deal with farm work. I know I would probably, especially in the heat of the summertime, I would pass more than likely, no matter how well hydration, whatever, they could stick a V bottle in me. That's probably the only way I could probably make it without passing out from the heat. That's the problem, is that a lot of these migrant workers are deported or in hiding, they're afraid of being deported, that a lot of these farms no longer have the people to do the job, which will inevitably raise prices, which will mean you will pay for it at the grocery store. And who can you thank for that? Trump. I'm not here to defend legal immigration, but you have to offer justice, mercy, okay? For centuries, Mexicans have come across the border, and some other nationalities, legally, living here and working. We all know this. It's been going on a long time. They take a lot of the jobs we don't want to do, paid a lot of really bad money, and, actually send a lot of that money back home. They make it in some way, shape, or form. You want to know the reason why all of this is going on? It's because they don't really have answers. So when you don't really have the answers to a problem, what do you usually do? You find a scapegoat. Guess who are the scapegoats in the Donald Trump administration? Mexicans and Muslims. Yep. You don't have a real plan to deal with terrorism. Just ban Muslims from coming in. Or kick those that are already here out. Supposed to be here. Now, let's face it, this is a very popular nationalism, a very popular thing right now. But blind faith and jingoist patriotism are two really bad things. I learned about this back in college. There's a lot of jingoistic patriotism going on, a lot of blind faith. So, do yourself a favor. If you're a Republican and conservative, compare what Trump is doing to what Reagan have done, or George Herbert Walker Bush, even George W. Bush, or for that matter, Goldwater and Nixon and what have you. Does this really conform to traditional conservative values? I don't necessarily think so. I think that there is going to be a movement some of the next year or two when Donald Trump's numbers get worse, and they are getting worse because his poll numbers are abysmal right now. He has the worst approval rating of a president through a little over 3 months ever. Now, granted, he's been under a lot of scrutiny, which is nothing new. It was not like he was popular to begin with. And he's made a lot of mistakes. His arrogance and his ego are getting the best of him. And I think it'll be his doing, unfortunately, because he doesn't realize that there are people on Capitol Hill in his own party that are like, nice with him for right now, but he's screwing up left and right, and yeah. I feel Donald Trump is at very significant risk of being primaried out in 2020. The Republicans may keep the White House. It does not necessarily mean Donald Trump will remain president. Keep that in mind. Now, you hear from there's many more, but there was a lot of talk on the left wing, even to some degree, even on the right wing, of impeachment of Donald Trump. How do you think Nixon finally bit the bullet? When he realized he didn't have the support of his own party anymore. If Donald Trump loses a significant portion of the support of his own party, and there's a big scandal comes up, you could see potentially Donald Trump being impeached by a Republican-led House and a Republican-led Senate, convicting him. That is a possibility. I think this Russia deal, some of the conflict interests he had, it is giving his enemies in his own party ammunition they need to get rid of him when they realize the cost he is to make them suffer at the polls in 2018. And don't think for 1 second that there aren't some politicians in the GOP who would like to see Trump gone. Not by necessarily being assassinated or anything like that. They're not ruthless. But impeachment could very well happen. And I think that there are a lot of people in the Trump administration who have questionable ethics. Even some Republicans have said so. So it makes you wonder, are they setting him up for failure? Are they basically going, okay, we're going to let him for a while, but there's going to be a point where he's himself, and we get to pull the trigger and pull the switch and let him hang himself. And I think that will happen, folks. So be very, very watchful for the next few months, couple of years, because if Republicans were to, I don't necessarily think they'll lose control of Congress or even one of the two houses of Congress, but I think their majorities will be significantly reduced in 2018. I think they'll lose a couple of Senate seats, and I think they'll lose maybe 8 to 10 House seats. Maybe a little bit more. They will not lose the majority in the House. It is we might possibly lose in 2018. Because remember, all the seats are up for grabs. And if Donald Trump is really as popular then as he is now, or, God for a Republican, worse, if his polls are even worse than they are now, that would really hurt. Now, what Donald Trump fails to understand is you gotta have at least something to hang your hat on with the Democrats. You know, you gotta at least have some. The one thing about Bill Clinton was he at least did work with some Republicans to get a balanced budget. He didn't like him. He didn't like him. Got stuff done. Got a balanced budget. We hadn't seen it. So, what's to happen? We are only 3 months, 3.5 months into the whole shebang known as the Donald Trump administration. And it seems like you would think things would settle down, and I think what will happen in the next few months is a major thing to happen to settle things. First of all, I think Steve Bannon will eventually be booted out. Second of all, I think Reince Priebus, the chief of staff, is going to eventually leave. Either he's going to quit or be fired. I think a lot of these cabinet secretaries that were highly unpopular will either be forced out or resign alone, and Trump will have an opportunity to bring people in that actually be more palatable to those on the side where they don't like him, but they don't really, really hate him, But right now, Donald Trump is still the so-called honeymoon phase, which a lot of his supporters are still, rah, rah, make America great again, rah, rah, Trump. Until they start seeing what the real impact of his decisions are later this year, when he has to present a budget, when his policies are responsible when the fiscal turns over. What if he stops government and has a shutdown in September like he's threatening to do? Well, guess what? It tends to hurt the Republicans more than the Democrats, because the Republicans are in charge, the Democrats are majorities in both houses. Why couldn't they get something done? Your big boy and girls, clearly you should play together, get something done, get the government running, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't health care reform the first time around. They may not get it again this second time around. There's a guarantee the Senate will go along with what the House is doing. And it very well happened that the Senate's bill is not popular in the House, and the House is not popular in the Senate, and next thing you know, this whole thing just fades away. So, keep your eyes glued on what's going on, folks, because things are going to change. Now, the real battle's 2020. That's the one of the Democrats I think are really focused on. 2018, they got to hold a lot of ground, Senate-wise, and they got to try and get they got to try and steal some seats in 2020. But the real battle is 2020, because the House is up again. There'll be sort of a split, I think, 50-50, Republicans defending and Democrats defending in 2020. So there's a chance Democrats could gain the Senate in 2020. And if presidency will be, I think Donald Trump could very well see his presidency ended, not because the Republicans nominate him again, but because they don't. That really will, because what would happen if Trump realizes he can't run for re-election because the Republicans will not nominate him again? They'll go with somebody else. Could it happen? Yes. I think there's a very good chance that the Republican Party primaries him out. It could happen. Keep an eye on what's going on, folks. Those of you Democrats out there, fret. You knew it was coming. Now you got to prepare for what is coming. The 18 and 20 elections. You got your chance to reverse things. You got a chance to talk to voters again, especially the ones who were on the fence, lean toward Trump this time around. And they really like him, but they liked him a little bit better than Clinton. Those are the ones I go for, because those folks that go, you know what? I don't really like that Trump anyway. Maybe the Democrats are a better choice after all. So, anyhow, Hillary Clinton is trying to start a political group. There's something in your return, I guess. She's not going to run for political office again. She might possibly run for mayor of New York. Possibly. May run for governor of New York. That's a possibility. I highly doubt you're ever going to see her try again for the presidency. It's very unlikely. She's not exactly a spring chicken. I hate calling a woman, but she's not exactly young anymore. And with the desire to be. She's lost twice before, once to Barack Obama in the primary. Then, of course, this time around, and I'll be the first to admit, I didn't see it coming. And I think a lot of Republicans should admit that, yeah, they didn't see it coming either. There was a very good chance that Donald Trump didn't think he was going to win either. He's shocked as anybody about this. But we'll see what happens. But I'm going to end the podcast by telling you I want to thank you very much for listening if you've listened so far. And take care.